There are no two ways around it. There are just some things you should avoid in your D&D game. So tonight, we're going to talk about
5 topics to avoid in your D&D game this week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. Bill, Scott,
Lou, Scott.
Bill, Lou.
how's it going tonight?
Going well. We're going to talk about a hot topic tonight. So
Real serious on this one.
yes, and I've experienced some of these things at the gaming table, not with our group and not with anybody recent, but there's been a couple. You know, when you meet a new player or a DM or something, and you invite them onto your table or you sit in on someone else's table and you encounter some distasteful practices, to put it lightly.
I a couple times, but I think the general response was an immediate, dude, not cool.
Yeah, you want to talk about something tasteful? Let's talk about our epic giveaway before we get into the nitty-gritty.
I think we shall.
We should.
We have, well, it's an epic giveaway. We are trying to get to 500 messages. Once we get to these 500 messages, and it's so easy to send us a message.
All you have to do is go to dungeonmasters.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there you'll see the form where you can fill it out.
DungeonMastersDojo.com.
Oh, one word.
I thought you said DungeonMaster.com.
Did I say Dungeon Master?
That's a totally different website. Don't go there, kids. Stay away from that.
That's one of the subjects we're going to talk about
Yes,
tonight.
We're going to talk this. DungeonMastersDojo.com, all one word. Send us a letter or a message with the form. Letters is how we communicated back in the old days before the
snail mail.
Facey time or the email. And enter for your chance to win a bunch of stuff. 4 dice trays, 12 complete sets of dice. Horde of the Dragon Queen, Nerdarchy's Out of the Box, Adventures,
Rad Pack, Brass and Steel.
The D&D Starters Kit, the D&D Essential Kit.
My gosh, there's a
and
lot.
Strahd.
Yes.
Revamped.
And
Revamped.
White Box Medieval Fantasies and Into the Odd.
And the Young Adventurers Kit, or book set.
Books. All of them. And Crown Royal bags,
Traditional
traditional dice bags, the contents of which were lovingly
Redistributed.
redistributed by the
Carefully.
three of us. Carefully redistributed by the three of us.
And responsibly.
That's all you got to do.
That's it.
Just send us a message. Send us a mean one. Send us a nice one. Tell us what you want to hear as far as episodes go. And that could be full-length episodes, DM quick tips. Ask us a question.
By all means.
And if you do leave us a message, you'll be given good fortune of Bill's D&D dice. Not Scott's, but Bill's.
That's bad fortune, mine.
I
Yes.
have a certain karma with my die.
So, but you only get that karma or that good fortune if you leave us a message.
Otherwise, you are doomed to roll like me.
All fumbles. So when you guys know, when you hit those 3 fumbles in a row, you're going to be like, shit, I got to go.
I got to get up there, yeah.
When your
and send a
D20
message.
never rolls over a 5, you've been scotted.
Yeah, that's a term now.
it is
you've
now.
You've been scotted.
And, you could tell us, we were giving some thought to doing an actual play. So tell us whether or not you want to hear a bunch of old farts play D&D.
Yeah, in this case, I'll be playing a module. You guys can be playing like a what do they call it? Campaign or a, what's the other one? The other
A
term?
retail adventure.
Retail adventure.
adventure.
Yeah.
I never use retail adventures.
Yeah, I'll be playing a module. I don't know what you guys will be doing because
We'll be
I'm an old
We'll be
fuck.
showing you a homebrew. In a homebrew world,
yes,
an original module guaranteed. If we do that.
if we do that.
Let us know.
Yeah, if you're interested.
Let's delve into
Let's get into the serious stuff.
Sticky topic of
Yes.
taboos at the table. These are 5 topics to avoid. It is not a complete list,
By any means, no.
right? There's a whole bunch of other things, but
These
I
are
just
our
think
top
these are
5, I think.
Yeah, these are the hottest ones. Let's
Let's lead it off. Sexual assault.
There is no place at the you
No.
know what, I got to tell you, you play D&D how you want to play D&D. I've always said that, but really this is one of those things. There's no place at the gaming table for that. You do not know people's backgrounds, their history. It's a very, very, very sensitive topic. And you know what? If you want to play out some sexual power fantasy, the gaming table really, really isn't
Not the place.
Yeah. Not the place. Leave that in whatever 50 Shades of Grey club or group you're in. But the gaming table, no.
No.
Because
It won't be a gaming table for very long.
it won't. You'll lose as a DM. You'll lose your players if that's the way you run your game. As a player, you may be the only one sitting at your table because you may lose your DM and you may lose the other players as well, and rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, it's just it's not something when, and even if it's something like a raiding band of raiders comes into like a town or a village or a city or something, you do not have to describe that behavior.
No.
You should not.
You should not.
No.
Yeah. More specifically than you do not. You should not. It is just something that is not appropriate for that. It can be very offensive. It's insensitive.
It also can, like you said, you don't know somebody's background, and that can actually trigger mental trauma.
It is. And that can very much so do that.
Now, this is the old man talking. When I started gaming, you seen one female, and unfortunately, females are probably the biggest target of this particular subject of sexual assault. You've seen one for every maybe 2,000 dudes.
Yeah.
Right? Nowadays, there are a rap load of women playing D&D.
Which is awesome.
And I could not be happier for it. In my tables, in my entire history, we've always been very inclusive. I think I've almost always had a woman or nowadays a girl playing at the table. So this is not a big thing, big difference for the old fart me. You don't know what they've been through.
Right.
And these days with, women are much more forthcoming about if they've had issues. But back in the day, they did not. And you don't know what's sitting back there. So by all means, be respectful of the people at your table.
Even if you want to go a step further, same thing can happen to men too. So you don't know
Yeah.
what can happen to men.
Yep.
So just because it's a bunch of guys at a table, and we're all masculine or whatever, I don't know. I'm just going to use Scott as an example. I don't know what Scott has been through in his life, in his whole life. Something could have happened when he was younger. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Not that anything has. I've known Scott for more than half his life.
But it's a valid point because men can be, or males can be victimized to the same extent that a female could. And the last thing I would hope someone wants to do is dig up some old trauma that maybe this individual has been trying very hard to work through. And if you do, you're awful. If you have that level of insensitivity, so they just don't have a place. There's no place. This is our first one for a good reason.
Very much
It's
so.
probably the number one.
Yes. Taboo isn't a strong enough word
Yeah.
for any of these. So let's move on to number 2, sexual role play.
Yeah, that's cringy, man.
Leave your sexual preferences or role play for home.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just doesn't belong at the gaming table. I don't know if there's like D&D groups that just have like sexual role play sessions.
Yeah, there may be.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, there may be. And great. If that's the way you're playing your game, have at it. But everyone is there for a reason, and that's one of the reasons they're there. But in the general populace, this is not right.
You're
right.
poor
Cringy.
Yeah.
It's cringy.
Poor practice. This is a fade to black situation.
Yes.
Where there's no need to really get into it. When it's a like a a topic like sexual role play, I always like to go when I'm running a table. I like to do a lot of what they did back in like the 50s, 60s, or very early 70s in movies or TV shows, where maybe you'll see someone pulling their boots on, sitting on the side of the bed, where it's implied.
And that's enough.
And that's it. You know, it tastefully approached as best you can, but really sexual role play at your average D&D table, if it's not one of those outlying
specialty tables, it doesn't have a place, because it can make people very uncomfortable, especially if, you know, you don't know each other. And even if you did know each other, I think it would be awkward. It would be game interrupting, immersion breaking. Yep.
It wouldn't.
I mean, even amongst our group, where a lot of us have been gaming together for a decade and a half, for just our large group, and then there's some of us that have known each other for decades. Even with that level of familiarity, this is still somewhere you don't go.
Yeah, it's still an awkward
Yes.
subject.
Yep.
It just doesn't work. I think it's something that would drive people away.
As do I. Well, any of these.
Yeah, for that matter, yes. Pretty much every one of these, I think, is something that would cause someone to decide to leave the table.
Mm-hmm. And that moves us on to our number 3.
Torture.
Yeah, you get a hold of the orc, and we got to get information out of them. Yeah, you might touch on it a little bit here and there. Oh, I'm going to break his fingers. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But to go on and on and on and repeatedly, and even then, it's like,
If you really think about it, there's no need for any torture in the
there's
game,
not.
because there's magical ways to
you
obtain.
took the words right out of my mouth. It's like, no, what's wrong with ESP? What's wrong with
detect thoughts. ESP, yeah, there's a few of them out there. I can't remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's all kinds of spells that will befriend this person and have them. Oh yeah, I'll tell you, no problem. So why would you resort to that? It is unnecessary.
It's a dark fantasy for some people.
It is.
Yeah, very very dark fantasy. It's like a power trip type thing, and it's not just the PCs. It's the DMs. Don't ever torture a player character. Players get very attached to their characters.
Yeah.
And that's just something that's going to really kind of distance a player from their trust in a DM, which is the worst thing that could possibly happen, because now people aren't going to be having fun at the gaming table. And
God forbid if they actually dread showing up because they're afraid of what's going to happen to the character.
Or they won't. That'll be it. You won't see them again.
Yep.
No explanation, because none is really necessary. So stay away from that torture stuff. Player characters, like they brought up, there's no need for it. There's other means to do that, and DMs absolutely do not torture your player characters. That's something that is a big.
Or don't torture your NPCs as a display for
Right.
the PCs, because that's just as bad.
It is, because PCs or players behind the character can grow attached to NPCs as well, and then you get that same problem. And I don't know why a DM would choose to do that. Maybe erroneously, a new DM may not realize the gravity of the error they have done, or maybe it's just one of those adversarial DMs,
And they'll be the ones that are most likely to go that route.
yeah, it's a dick move.
It is,
very
much so.
So don't be a dick. Plain and simple. It's just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
That's what this episode should be. Be titled "Don't Be a Dick."
Don't be a dick.
I will title it on the episode notes.
Don't be a dick. Then we move on to real world religion.
touchy subject.
Oh my gosh.
Religion of any manner, shape, or form.
It sure is. And I realized this very, very early on, and I had to make some modifications to my own game back in first edition and second edition. Paladins were very, very much so modeled after the chivalric Christian knights. And that could be a problem because not everybody is Christian. Not everybody is of the same religious beliefs.
Not everyone is religious, period.
Not everyone is religious, period. Absolutely. So you had to really give some thought to, okay, does this work for my game? No. Does it work for any game? I really don't think so. But I had to make modifications in my own game early on because of that, because I didn't think, well, it didn't fit, first of all. And that's what the 16-year-old me had in their mind.
And I think that's why TSR moved away pretty much from religion, just had them all move to devotions.
Yes.
And oaths, I should say.
Oaths, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the better ideas that came out of there was to move the paladin away from that Christian model of, Arthurian knight type thing.
Well, it wasn't truly realistic.
No, not really
even the Arthurian knights weren't all that pious.
Yeah, well, not many knights were.
No.
Historically. So but it just didn't work. And in real world religion's a hot topic. You want to piss someone off and alienate them, talk religion and politics.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll happen. I just don't think there's a place for either at the gaming table. It's one of those things where it should just be, okay, here's a bunch of people that enjoy one another's company getting together to have a good time playing a game. And it shouldn't matter what their belief set is, but there's an emotional attachment to someone's belief set.
In a number of cases, yes. Unfortunately, less so these days than it was when I was younger. But still, there are people that are devout. There are people that are faithful and to their particular religions. And if you start pissing in their pool, they're going to get pissed at you.
Yeah, I certainly believe that. I'm okay with religious debates being in the game and being about the gods in the game, much like in Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Where his friend the archer, I forget what he says, Conan's talking about Crom living in his mountain and judging everybody, and his little buddy with a bow and arrow goes, my God is greater. Your God lives underneath my God. He's the sky and the wind and, stuff like that.
Right.
Certainly has its place.
So the religions in the game are there for your clerics and your druids. You're there to show fealty and devotion to your gods, to whether they're the Fae, whether they're one of the greater gods, lesser gods, if that's how you get your powers. That's what they're there for in the game. And that's perfectly fine. But we're talking about real world religions, and you don't want to be dragging those into a fantasy world.
No, you'll run into problems all over the gaming table when you start dealing with real world religions, because someone's going to get offended or someone's going to be offensive. And it doesn't always have to be intentional either. Someone could blunder and say something, being ignorant of the subtleties of the religion or the content of the religion, and not really know they're being offensive. So it's easier just to leave that
avoid
out.
them. Yeah, just avoid them altogether. Yeah. So let's move on to evil PCs.
Yeah, that's going to just slow your game up and make for an unpleasant experience at the gaming table, which of course is not the goal of getting together and gaming. I always saw D&D as a hero's game, right?
Yes.
Where you're the good guys, and you may be an anti-hero type of character like Wolverine or the Punisher or Dirty Harry, but you're still a hero.
You're out for the greater good.
Yeah.
You're looking out for the little guy. And, okay, if the bad guy's got to get beat up a little worse than everybody else would do it, then so be it. But that's the anti-hero. But evil is a whole different critter.
Well, if you think about this evil PC is all the subjects we just talked about.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a culmination of all the ones that come in, because you're going to run into all this other stuff from your evil PC.
Exactly.
So
there's going to
just
be all that.
don't throw out an evil PC.
Or don't play a evil PC game.
Right, which just propagates a whole buttload of just bad behavior.
That's going to lead to
bleed.
problems.
It's going to bleed over into your other game because, hey, if it's okay to do there, then I'm going to do it over here. Ha, 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 ha. It's wrong. I don't know how to say it another way. It's just wrong.
It promotes hard feelings, too.
It does.
Because evil PCs do evil things.
Yes.
And they're in it for themselves. And if you're going to role play an evil PC and do a good job at it, they're really just looking out for themselves.
A group of evil PCs, will, for the most part, would not.
They wouldn't even be together.
It's going to implode.
Yeah, but maybe for a week because I need to get something from your evil guy.
Yeah.
But not a whole campaign.
No.
I can't see it.
They won't. Yeah, you can't see them working together.
Evil
because
PCs
they won't.
do not play sandbox.
They don't.
They don't play sandbox.
Play well together because they're evil. And I always think I always find it humorous. I'll cruise the forums and they're talking, there was someone today talking about, I want to play an evil character, and that always stimulates conversation.
It does.
And you have a bunch of people responding like wildfire. And some people are constructive, other people are absolutely not. But you're not going to fit well as an evil character with a non-evil group.
In a game that's set up to promote heroism.
Yes. The chaotic
or at
evil,
least good guy versus bad guy.
Yeah, the chaotic evil alignment, I always believed, was strictly for the bad guys, as was the neutral evil and the lawful evil. They're always going to be the bad guys. The differences between those three evil alignments, I always felt was, are they redeemable? Lawful evil, probably.
Yeah.
Darth Vader, good example of lawful evil. He was redeemable, but I don't think they have a place at the gaming table. They don't work well in a non-evil group, and they work especially poorly in an evil group.
The only way you should play them is as an NPC, and that's it. That should be the guys where your table's going after him.
Yes. And people, it's only a one shot. But again, it's going to propagate that type behavior. It's going to bleed over into your regular campaign.
It's going to have a ripple effect.
Well, yeah. Not only that, a lot of us, we're not evil by nature. So why would you want to try to play something that you know is not going to work? That's how I look at it.
True.
But, I'm not an evil person. I try not to do bad things. So if I do that at the table, I'm just going to feel sullied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
And with today's debate raging about orcs and goblins aren't evil, because not everybody, evil is not really a thing, and but yet there's still that. Well, orcs aren't evil, goblins aren't. It's offensive to think that. Man, I want to play an evil character. I don't understand how that fits into that grand scheme of things.
I would have never thought of it like that.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And I'm a firm believer that, what, in my fantasy world, some things are just evil, because the beauty of fantasy is good triumphing over evil. So all my demons and devils are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some entire races, or the majority of it, that are evil, not because it's bigoted or biased against a certain fabricated group of people. It's just, that's the way it is. In the fantasy world, there's wickedness and there's irredeemable evil. And that's just the way it is. But it's just not a place for a player character.
No, not at all. All right. So unlike me, everyone else has feelings. It's important that you, as the game master, keep that in mind. It's your responsibility to ensure that these subjects are not broached at your table, and everyone has a safe and comfortable gaming environment. Whether it's these subjects or any others that have been brought to your attention during session 0 or as your game progresses, be prepared to put your foot down. The loss of one player is better than the loss of a table full of friends or your credibility.
And that's 5 topics to avoid in your D&D game. We'll see you next time in the dojo.
That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook. at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.